All right, right now we are joined on the phone by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Chief Nim Kidd with the Texas Department of Emergency Management.
Good evening to both of you, and was going to ask you, Governor Abbott, so the biggest question that Houstonians, and I know all of the state of Texas really, but in our area there have been so many people, more than 12 hours going on, no power, and our mayor here, Mayor Sylvester Turner, saying that the state must own and explain the magnitude of these power outages across the state. So what is your response to both of those?
Sure. So we've been working around the clock with regard to the power issue, and here's what we've learned. And that is, power was working well through about midnight last night. Then in the early morning hours, the power generators that generate the power to begin with and then sell it to the customers that then sign up your viewers, their power generation capability froze up. And it wasn't just in the Houston region, it was across the entire state of Texas. And as a result, there were millions of customers across the state who were unable to access power because the power generators that generate the power froze up. The good news is there are work today. Over the past couple of hours, there have been about 500,000 homes across the state whose power has been restored, and we will continue working throughout the night to make sure that we continue the process of restoring power.
And an area where there hasn't been a lot of power restored is Galveston County. And Galveston, the island there, 90% of the folks there, according to the county judge, do not have power. And the county judge was telling one of our reporters that the providers aren't sure if an outage is a result of an ERCOT temporary power outage or an emergency power outage. So they're having some significant challenges identifying where they should be putting their resources. So do you believe that there is some type of communication disconnect?
Here's what I understand, and that is ERCOT, which is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. They work to make sure that the entire Texas grid does not have a failure. And they do that on occasion by doing things like having rolling blackouts. And there have been some rolling blackouts in various different parts of the state of Texas. If, like you were talking about in Galveston, somebody has been without power for a long time, not as a rolling blackout, that probably is because the entity, the company that generates the power for their power provider, their capability of providing power is offline, and it will be up to that private company to get back online as quickly as possible.
Chief Kidd, this is Jonathan Martin here. I want to bring you in the conversation and talk to you about something you've been talking about a lot the last couple of days, is warning people about using these gas-driven devices. I know this might go without saying, but for some people, but for a lot of people, this is the first time they've ever had to even think about using a device like this to stay warm.
Yeah, and thank you for that. You know, it's been about 120 years that our meteorologists told us that we've had this low a temperature across the state for this long a period of time. And so to your point, there's a lot of us that really don't. We live in South Texas for a reason, right? We don't like the cold. And so we do want people to stay warm as much as possible, but it is very dangerous using things like propane heaters and barbecue pits inside your home. If you have to use those fire sources for heat, make sure your house is ventilated, which goes against, trying to keep the cold out. So that's why the governor's worked very hard to open up warming centers across the state of Texas. We have over 150 warming centers that are supported and operated by our partners in the private sector, our volunteer organizations in the Houston area. You can call 311 and find the closest warming center. And for your viewers that are outside of the metro area, they can call 211, run by the Health and Human Services Commission, and they'll give the address to the closest warming center.
And Chief Kidd, you and your team, along with the governor, have already deployed thousands of resources. We mentioned the troopers, we mentioned some military personnel and others. Where specifically are you finding the most need is right now in terms of deploying the resources?
Well, we've actually been chasing it across the state. And, it started off a couple of days ago with our interstates that were locked down out in West Texas. And as the storm has moved in, we've moved with it. Really, right now, if you're one Texan that thinks they need help, you're the only one that really matters to us. So what we'd ask your folks to do is, again, stay off the road unless they absolutely need to be. Don't be walking around outside looking at what's happening, because we're getting a lot of calls for 911 service for slips, trips, and falls. And then do everything we can to try to stay warm for this next overnight period. And the governor said he's working very hard around the clock with the Public Utility Commission and ERCOT to bring as much generation back online as fast as possible.
Governor, we have 30 seconds. I'll give you the final word. A lot of Houstonians, a lot of people across the state, obviously concerned they don't have power. Any final words you have before we go this afternoon?
Everyone needs to know that we are pressing the pedal to the metal on both the Public Utilities Commission as well as ERCOT to make sure that the private generators of the power get back online as quickly as possible to get lights on across the entire state of Texas.
All right, Governor Greg Abbott, Chief Kit, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Of course, we'll keep you posted. We hope you'll keep us posted, rather, if you have any updates.